great place for students to going on in their classes is Infinite Campus. There are a lot more resources than just Infinite Campus and the email addresses that students have access to in my backpack. And we do a really good job of introducing students to all these platforms at the beginning and throughout sixth grade year. But students do have access to an email address that we would like them to use to email their teachers questions or anything regarding assignments throughout the year. And we are a one-to-one school, so each student does receive a device for the school year. We believe that combining technology and traditional practices is best practice. So we definitely want students to maintain their devices, take care of their devices. They do receive a device and a charger that we would like them to bring charged every single day to school. Teachers incorporate technology and traditional practices throughout the year and throughout the different lessons. So we want to make sure students have access to all of the different ways that teachers use their devices and that they are able to use their devices as resources. And students are able to take their devices home to do assignments and have access to all the resources that they do have at school as well.
Good afternoon. Good evening, rather. I'm Ms. Hurt, language arts teacher for sixth grade. Our English language arts Georgia standards cover basic ELA, writing, narrative, informational, and argumentative. We do spend a lot of time on writing full-fledged essays, poetry and figurative language, and other types of literary elements. We talk about plot elements, character development, theme, genre, all of the elements that are involved with reading are short pieces, short stories, excerpts from books, and then also nonfiction articles as well. And we focus a lot on vocabulary acquisition because that's usually one of the skills that we need to really pay attention to. The reading expectations are that your children do read some at home. We can't get enough reading in the brief time that we have them on a daily basis. So they should be reading at least 20 minutes or more nightly. Some of it is reading that they just choose a book and enjoy it, and some is specifically for assigned book reports that we have quarterly. Some of our online reading resources are all used with our devices. IXL, we have Common Lit, ReadWorks, News ELA, the Amplify Library, and what happened? So most of those complement Amplify, the program that we have as our official curriculum. You can go ahead. You got to. All right. So the assessments, which are important to know, we have formative assessments throughout. As I said, we use an Amplify curriculum, and there's solos at the end of each chapter, and they do cover some of the standards that have been addressed in each unit. We have in-lesson reading activities, and we also have writing prompts embedded. So there's a writing prompt that is connected to the reading assignments that we have. Some of them are short constructed responses, and some are long essays, and they are all in line with what is expected in writing on the Georgia milestones. Our summative assessments, we use RightScore, which is a system that is from APS, and every assessment that we have that is for our narrative, informational, and argumentative writing goes through that process now. This is something that was just started this year, and it's a uniform assessment that everyone takes, and I think all of the middle schools in APS. The unit reading assessments are directly from Amplify, and they are fed to us through the Phoenix program, which is another new source that we use this year. And then, of course, we have the MAP growth testing, which is done quarterly. And this just gives us a bird's eye view of what it is that students have done in a certain quarter. And you will receive information about student growth from quarter to quarter as we do these MAP tests. So this is just an example of the units that we cover in Amplify. And this is the majority of our time. We have things that are incorporated into this, but these are the basic units. We began with Dahl and narrative, which is a good look at Roald Dahl, someone that most of the students are already familiar with. And we look through the lens of narrative writing. We look at some excerpts from Roald Dahl's first person memoirs, and then we have children actually mimic that by writing some memoirs of their own or pieces of memoirs of their own. The main focus is on characterization. They do a lot of introductory writing in that unit. The next one, mysteries and investigations. This is actually the one that we're on now, and it's probably the one that's most dense. And we talk about mystery. So medical and criminal mystery. It focuses on yellow fever and how yellow fever started in the United States, and how most doctors, as inefficient as they were at the time, rushed to find what the cause was, how it was being transmitted. So the whole section does go through how evidence is found, how evidence is used, and what we can do to support once we have evidence. And children just follow the pace of the investigation. These children have the unique experience of being exposed to a pandemic. And one of the things that we used as a draw this year was, you actually experienced a pandemic. You know what it's like. You know what people experienced in the 1800s when they were full-fledged in a pandemic with yellow fever. So the other one, chocolate collection, we've done. We talk about in chocolate, how chocolate is created. They get to taste chocolate. They get to do different fun experiments with chocolate. But they also hear the flip side, and that's how chocolate is produced and manufactured in other countries, and the price that some people pay for the chocolate that we enjoy. So that's where we spend a lot of time on our argumentative writing. Is it fair to eat chocolate? We also have a Greeks unit, and most of the students are familiar with Greek mythology. We focus on specific gods and goddesses. And again, there's an argumentative lead. Should we have fire? Should regular people have fire, or should they not have fire? And we do a lot of analysis of characters and themes that go through mythology. And they do write about different texts and compare and contrast different characters in that unit. The Summer of the Mariposas, it's about a hero's journey. We explain what a hero's journey is, and then we use examples of that type of writing, and have the students trace characters' hero's journey in other stories that they've read in other stories. Like if they have a book report that has a hero's journey structure in it, then they know because they've already been exposed to that. Okay, let's finish the next one. Then, oh, was that it? Oh, shorter than I thought. Okay, thank you.
Hello, I'm Ms. Jackson. I am doing math and accelerated math also. I want to see how things add up in the world. I want to encourage equality. I just want to make a difference. Do y'all notice what those are? That's not funny? Okay, you keep going. I see you. All right, so these are prerequisites that your student would need to come in with um, in order to have a successful sixth grade math year. So we have your multiplication and division facts. That's up to 12 times 12. We need to know all four operations of multi-digit whole numbers. So those your subtraction, addition, division, and multiplication, and those are multi-digits, so more than two-digit numbers. Well, more than one-digit numbers. General fraction understanding. So you need to find equivalent fractions, understand what fractions are in terms of operation and how we use them. Next slide. So these are some of the units that are, sorry, these are all of the units covered in sixth grade math. We have a statistics unit. It talks about, give them a little bit of information on data sets and how we view numbers and what those numbers actually mean in real world scenarios. We have making connections through number systems. So you are making sure that we understand number system fluencies and how they connect to real world. We will also dive into investigating rate, ratios, and proportional relationships. So again, this is where some of the we'll go into this. Give me 2 seconds. You have building a conceptual understanding of expressions. So they get to work with one-step expressions in the next unit, and they get to work with inequalities. So we are understanding expressions first, and we are expanding on that information by going into one-step equations from there and inequalities. After that, we get a little bit of area and volume, a little bit of geometry in. And after that, we're going to do rational exploration. That's numbers and their opposites. And we're going to end with graphing rational numbers. So if you notice, most of the units build on the other or the previous unit. So coming in with some of those standards that I listed before are really important. We can go to the next slide. So this is accelerated math here. I want you to notice the asterisk on the side here. The 3 stars, they are going to be those units that extend to the 7th grade standards. We're going to start with real life phenomena through statistics. So this is very similar to the 6th grade math standard. You have your making relevant connections through number system fluency again. And you have your investigation with rates, ratios, and proportional relationships. This also extends to the 7th grade standard, so they'll see it again. Building a conceptual understanding of expressions, exploring real life phenomena through one-step equations and inequalities, exploring area and volume, rational exploration with the numbers and their opposites, and graphing rational numbers. So you may be saying, hey, that's the same slide from before. With accelerated math, it's going to go in depth a little bit more and at, of course, an accelerated pace. So they will go over 6th grade and 7th grade standards. Criteria for class placements are determined at the district level. Assessments. Students are assessed in math each week. So each week, we have some form of checking your students' understanding, checking to make sure we are, okay, checking your students' understanding and checking to make sure we are all on the same pace and ready for your summative assessments. So your formative assessments are daily checks. Those are homeworks. They get those on a weekly basis. You have your common formative assessments. That is a way that we monitor how we're doing. It's like a snapshot in real time. And we have class activities and exit tickets. So throughout the week, these are things that you are expected to hear your students mention and hear them talk about. And this is a way that we are gauging and monitoring their progress prior to your quizzes, your unit tests, and your MAP growth assessments.
Hey everyone, I'm Patrick Doherty. I'm one of the social studies teachers, and I'm going to tell you all about sixth grade social studies. As you see here, the regions of the world that the kids learn in sixth grade is Europe, Latin America, Canada, and Australia. And then when they go to seventh grade, they'll learn about Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. And then in eighth grade, social studies, they will learn Georgia history, and that's kind of US history with a Georgia lens. So by the end of middle school, they've kind of traveled the globe and gotten a bit about different parts of the world going into high school. All right. So the social studies subject is broken into these 4 domains, and we always break up those different regions that they learn about into these different domains week by week. So we always start with geography, and then we'll move into history, government, and then economics. And as we teach them about, maybe the geography of Canada and the history of Canada and the government of Canada and so on, we're also introducing them to skills that they're learning as they relate to these different domains. So skills like how to analyze cause and effect in history, or in economics, how to, like we have a personal finance week where they learn how to, make a budget, or skills in government about, how to assess how democratic or autocratic a country is. So yeah, this is how each unit progresses region to region and then through these different domains here. So here you have, this is the year pretty much at a glance. Each of these phrases is a week. And so we have 4 quarters, and we have all these different weeks, these different topics that students learn. And the first semester, so the green and the blue columns are more, they're learning about Europe, and they're learning a lot of these technical skills that they then apply at a more kind of fast pace in the second semester. So for instance, we'll teach them about Europe for a while and then move into government terms, economic terms, and kind of have an economics unit. So when we get to Latin America today and we learn about the economics and the economies of Latin America today, they have those skills they learned in the first semester to apply them to a real world situation. Throughout the year, the students read 4 books. So we read War Horse. We just finished reading a novel called Caminar that's about the Guatemalan Civil War. It's told in verse, so it's poetry. And then soon we're going to be reading a graphic novel called A Girl Called Echo, about Canada and about Indigenous identity in Canada. And then we end the year, the last couple of weeks, reading Malala Yousafzai's memoir to kind of lead into next year, and more of the subjects they'll be learning next year in 7th grade. And so the next slide shows you the assessments students will get in 6th grade social studies. And go back a few if you could. And so anyways, like the other classes, we are constantly giving them formative assessments. So those are do nows on Nearpod or quizzes or an exit ticket at the end of the class. We do quarterly assessments on all the learning, and that's kind of a more robust platform that can analyze data based on the students' responses. And then also we have weekly homework assignments and just classroom activities and observation during those activities. So we're constantly using all that data to inform how we teach the students and how we group them and how we modify assignments and figure out what works best for the students and how to support them. And so our summative assessments are quizzes and tests, usually on Google Forms, and then we do 2 projects a semester. So like last week, we just finished our Caminar book about to cap off our Latin America subject, our Latin America unit, and they did a project about poetry, and they wrote their own poems. They analyzed poems in the book, and so there's a lot of opportunities for connections with other classes, such as science and ELA mostly, so they can apply some of the skills they're learning in their other classes to what they learn in social studies. There was some great projects about they wrote poems about their own identity. They wrote poems about their hopes and dreams. There was a poem titled An Ode to the Pickle, and a student who loves pickles wrote all about that, and I thought it was just wonderful. So it's the type of things we do in 6th grade social studies, and by the end of the year, they have a pretty good dose of these big themes like colonization and economic hardship and how that relates to political extremism, but also really just practical everyday things like personal finance and some of the economic stuff we teach them. So yeah, thanks for listening.
Hey everybody, I'm Spence Ford. I will be speaking about the 2 offerings that we have in science, which is something very new. So we don't just have earth science in a gifted earth science, we have earth science, and then our gifted offering is a totally different class. And so I'll talk to you a little bit about, we'll have one slide that'll kind of cover the topics for 6th grade, and then right after that one that'll kind of show earth systems, and you can hopefully see some similarities and differences there, and then I'll kind of wrap up by talking about what is different about the earth systems class versus the earth science class. So we can go to the next slide. I'm not seeing anything on the next slide yet. Okay, so there's a lot going on here on this one, but you can see the main topics here are very similar to what they saw in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. So a lot of times in earth science, which is this slide right here, they'll tell me a lot of times, oh, we remember this from 3rd grade, or we remember covering this in 5th grade. And it just is kind of a culmination of those. So we've got meteorology and hydrology, astronomy, oceanography, geology, energy and resources. So it's a broad class. It covers a lot of information. And so let's kind of compare this to earth systems. So that'll be on the next slide. So you can see with the red here in the smaller print, it's a lot of the same things that we covered in earth science in 6th grade, but because this is a high school course, it kind of, the assumption is that not only are students coming in understanding what they pulled in from elementary school, they're also have to have kind of a basic understanding of life science and physical science from 8th grade as well. And so the topics, they're about the same, but instead of talking about weather, we're talking about climatic processes. Instead of talking about just weathering and erosion, we're talking about the processes that are tied into that tie the geology with some of the life science and some of the physical science properties. And then we throw in some chemistry as well. And you can see kind of from the headings, a lot in the descriptions. And I know for some of you probably can't see those, but I know y'all get a copy of this as well. So you can kind of go back and look at them a little bit more in depth. But there is a lot, you go a lot deeper into the topics and you move a good bit faster. So the earth science itself, that's going to be our traditional, that's what, if you've had any kids who've come through the system before, that's the traditional 6th grade class that they're used to. And then we're adding concepts of 7th and 8th grade into the earth systems class. So we can go back to the one right before this, so we can just kind of look at the testing, because it's very similar to what you saw, what you've already heard with the other classes. Formative is very similar. The do nows and exit tickets. We use quizzes, Blookits, Kahoots, Google Forms. I didn't have that one in there, but we use that as well. Then we have our CFAs, and then just daily observations and activities to kind of get that formal assessment. And then our summatives, very similar to all the other classes, quizzes and tests. Sometimes we use formative, sometimes we use Edulastic. We'll have unit projects and labs. There'll be more in-depth unit projects and labs in our systems, but there would definitely be some as well in earth science. We have final exams, but we don't have milestones. And I know that Mr. Doherty didn't mention that, but in science and social studies, we don't have end of the year milestones. That's just covered in ELA and math. Yeah, and then we can go to that last slide, because I know probably a lot of parents are wondering, since this is the first year, like what makes them different? And I tried to mention a couple of things already. But a key here to know is that the Earth Systems is a high school class. They have 2 separate sets of standards. Like if you go to the Department of Education, they're 2 totally different standards sets. So it's a high school class. So it assumes that they know elementary prerequisite science concepts, as well as 6th, 7th, and 8th grade concepts going into the class. As something that's new here is that upon the completion of the class, they do earn a high school science elective credit. So that's not a science credit, high school science credit, but a science elective credit. But that is one credit that they already have under their belt kind of going in to high school. Same thing happens in 8th grade. So there's a chance to earn 2 elective credits going into high school. It is more challenging. There is more work. There is more rigor to this class, to the Earth Systems class. This is something that was kind of a shock to a lot of students and parents coming in, I think, and that is that science fair is mandatory for all students in Earth Systems. It's optional in Earth Science, at least at this point, but it is mandatory for all students. And we start like in the first week or 2 when we go back to school. So there's no like breathing room. You just have to start, and we don't have control over that. That's based off of when the district, the state, and the national science fairs are. And then very much, you've got to be able to critically think. There's a lot of self-paced and directive learning that is necessary to be successful in Earth Systems. I think that is all for me, but if you want to put anything in the chat, if I can answer or I can answer questions later, I'd be glad to do so.
All right, but thank you, sixth grade team. And we do see questions. We'll come back though. And I had a few questions about gifted, so I will go ahead and tackle this. All gifted students will receive at least 2 gifted or GATE classes. Accelerated Math and High School Earth Systems counts as a GATE class. Although technically I do want to say they are not identified as GATE classes, but if your student is a GATE student and has one or two of these classes, they will count towards your GATE classes. With the exception of Accelerated Math and High School Earth Systems, GATE classes are not accelerated or advanced class. All classes will implement Georgia Standards of Excellence. In addition, classes will differentiate for gifted learners using the APS Gifted and Talented Program instructional standards. For example, creative problem solving, advanced communication skills, global citizenship, higher order thinking skills, and social emotional learning. Gifted model used in secondary is within the context of the content area. So we do not pull out for gifted at the secondary level. Big change from elementary. We want our students to be successful, so we definitely offer student support. If you're a current student or if you need support with a 504 or SST, we do have our 504 MTSS specialist, Ms. Rhonda Hudson. This is her email. She is not on tonight, but you can reach her via email. And I do believe that she will be scheduling some transition meetings soon. We have, if your student has an IEP, our CELT, Ms. Patty Marin. She is currently out on maternity leave, so please give her until mid to end April if you need to reach out. Also, we have teacher tutorials. All of our teachers offer tutoring, either in the morning or afternoon. And to add to that, if your student can attend any content teacher on the grade levels tutorial, so not necessarily with his or her teacher. And paper tutorial, that's free online tutorial service available 24 hours per day for all APS students.
So we're going to pause at this time to see if we have any questions before we go into the connections slides. If you have any questions for our core teachers, or Ms. Willingham, if you wanted to answer any of the questions that's been coming up in chat.
Forgot to take myself off mute. Zoom, it's been a minute. Sorry, guys. We had a lot of questions about accelerated math. I think Ms. Hollis answered that. The criteria is established by the district. I don't believe we have received that score information quite yet, but it is based on math.
We have. I don't want to misquote.
Okay.
So we can definitely add that to the slide deck after this meeting ends, so that I'm not delaying it.
Okay.
I want to say, I don't want to misquote.
Okay. So that information is coming soon. However, it is contingent upon current teacher recommendation, the current grade, and math scores for accelerated. How do decisions about student placement accelerated math in high school science class? Will we do a second?
The high school science class is similar to the accelerated math criteria, except when you do the parent permission slip, they are agreeing to the science fair. Mr. Ford, am I correct in that? But you have to be reading on or above grade level, which is going to be determined using the RIT score from your map from 5th grade, and teacher recommendation, and the parent permission. And when we say teacher recommendation, we are not asking for a teacher recommendation letter. They are filling out criteria to evaluate whether or not the student is ready to move into those spaces. So do not use that as an opportunity to berate the elementary teachers to complete these. They naturally complete these. And we use the data to make a determination from there.
All right. I see a question about second look. Yes, we will do a second look after fall map. And yes, that will more than likely mean shifting students after they qualify. At least that has been the trend these past few years. Hollis, can you take this one? Is Earth Systems placement also based on math, teacher evaluation, and parent permission?
Yes, that's what I just said. It is. And I do also want to say about the second look, that is dependent on the administration that we will have in the fall, because those are practices that have happened in the past. I cannot guarantee that those are practices that will be continuing to happen in the future. So from past experiences, we have had second looks using that fall map data to make determinations. And then we have Ms. Scott would be your point of contact for making those schedule changes. So you'll get very comfortable with Ms. Scott in the back and forth with that. But it is seamless for sixth grade because it would just be whether or not that RIT score for MAP is high enough to warrant that shift. But that has been what has been done in the past. Again, we cannot guarantee that is what is going to be the practice in the future.
I do see a question that states if a child qualifies for accelerated math and high school science, will the workload be too much with activities? I think that is just a question that parents and students would have to really look at. Depends on how many activities and your child. If they get into both, can we opt out of one? Yes, you can.
And that's why the parent permission slip is so important. Again, high school Earth Systems is not a class or a course that's taken at Midtown High School. I actually have not heard of that course being a course that's taken in any Atlanta Public Schools high school, although it does count as a high school course according to the state of Georgia. So I do not want to persuade parents one way or another. That is a decision that has to be made with, the family unit. And you can always ask more probing questions to determine if that's something that's needed. But I think that is something that, again, like Ms. Willingham said, the family unit is going to have to make that determination. Do you have to go into accelerated right now? No. There'll be opportunities to accelerate throughout the matriculation through secondary. When we say secondary, it means 6 through 12. Not going into accelerated math in sixth grade does not mean that you're not going to get to calculus by the time you get to high school. There are many entry points into accelerating your mathematics, and right now might not be the entry point that you and your family determine. I think that when you ask that question, it's such a great question because you really need to think about the student as a whole child, because there are a lot of things that are going to change for your child between now and May of next year. So hormonally, emotionally, socially, there are a lot of changes that a middle school student goes through. And so when you're making these determinations, please take those things into consideration. It is not about how many gifted classes or accelerated classes your neighbor is in, is what's best for your individual child.
All right, we've had a few questions about gifted. And I just want to clarify, especially with the last question. Are the accelerated math and Earth Systems classes for math and science the only offerings for GATE? So those are not technically GATE offerings. We do have GATE ELA. We do have GATE Social Studies. What that means is that if your student has an accelerated math class and GATE ELA, those are the two classes that your student would have in terms of GATE. But we do have non-GATE students in accelerated math and earth systems. So they aren't technically GATE classes, but they will count as GATE classes if you have a gifted student and they take those classes. I hope that clarifies.
And
Do you
let
want
me
to
also
say anything,
add the
Ms. Holly?
caveat that they have to meet the criteria to get in. So if you're GATE and you don't meet the criteria, that is not going to get you entry just because you're gifted GATE. So I want to specify that.
And I had an earlier question about gifted classes. If I'm recalling correctly, the question was, will other gifted students be in the gifted class? And the answer is yes, because all of those students would also need that gifted class as well for their course. But it does not mean that your student will be in all gifted classes with only gifted students. So I hope that clarifies that question.
And let me add one more thing to the qualifications that I forgot. So I did pull up, and we hope to add the link to these identifying markers, but a RIT score of a 227 or higher and an average in 5th grade, I guess, coursework or assessment work of an 85 or higher. And that would be for math. And I want to say that's the same for science as far as a Lexile on level and an 85 or higher in science. Ms. Scott, if I'm incorrect, you have permission to correct me while we are with the parents so that we're not giving out misinformation. All right, so we'll continue on, Ms. Willingham, to connections classes.
All right, connections. Okay, so we do offer world language at the exploratory level for 6th grade, and the goal is to expose our students. At this current time, students are exposed to 2 languages if they are in foreign language. I believe it's 9 weeks of one and 9 weeks of the other during a semester. Does that sound about right, Ms. Scott? And it's either going to be Spanish and French or Spanish and Latin.
Yes, that's correct.
Next slide. Within our visual arts program, we have art, photography, sketching, and creative and critical thought, expressive, building of individual expressive confidence. That's part of our visual art program with Ms. Lebo. And then, of course, we have our music program starting with orchestra. Orchestra is divided into beginning, intermediate, and advanced. We have 2 performing orchestras, which is our concert and chamber, and we perform on instruments from the core string instrument family. And I just want to reiterate that our orchestra or all of our music programs are very involved, and they do require a year-long commitment. Continuing with fine arts, we have dance and drama. Dance and drama is a combination of the 2. Students engage in creative exploration, and they showcase this at the end of the semester with a program. They learn about dance routines, choreography techniques, dance critiques, collaboration with peers and other dance professionals, elements of theater and drama, and theater techniques, for example, stage direction and lighting. Our chorus department, also very actively involved. It is a commitment, a year-long commitment, should your student choose to be a part of the chorus program. This is hard to see. So I'm just going to say that, again, if you choose to be in chorus, your student will have chorus every other day for the year, and they are involved in several different competitions. All of our music programs go to LGPE, and they actually do very well. So please, if you are selecting one of our music programs, we cannot stress enough that it is a commitment. So please make sure that your student wants to be a part of the program. Finally, we have our band. Again, it's a year-long experience. You can come in as a new band member, so no experience necessary. Instruments: flute, oboe, clarinet, sax, trumpet, trombone, baritone, tuba, and percussion. They have a lot of performance opportunities, perform a variety of music, learn lifelong skills, and private lessons are encouraged. Ms. Scott, I'm going to pass this on to you.
So we have physical education and some things that those students are learning. They'll do different sports activities. They're going to learn about the importance of being active, and just making sure that they are staying physical throughout their time. So we have several different school organizations and parent involvement opportunities. We have our Go Team, we have our PTO, boosters, and also our foundations. We'll provide this slide so that you can see what they do. I know just with our feeder schools, we have, you all are very familiar with these organizations as well. So we always like to encourage our parents to sign up for these different opportunities.
And remember, Go Team, you have to be elected to participate on Go Team. And then PTO, which is different from PTA, but PTO, the elections will happen in May to join the board for PTO, and Foundations is starting their selection process now. Boosters is a subsidiary of PTO.
This is our registration slide. So registration for new Howard students, so our rising sixth graders, has already begun. You can go to the Atlanta Public Schools website, and we also have it on our David T. Howard website as well. That way you can go in and provide the necessary documents, because all students coming into sixth grade need to re-register. So that opened up March 1st, and applications are being approved daily. Also, we have an event coming up, our Fun on the Field, April 26th. Our registrar, Ms. Tracy Walton, will be there. So you also can, if you have any questions or need assistance with registration, she'll be there to assist with that during that time as well. If you are coming from outside of Atlanta Public Schools, or your student attend a charter school, registration opens for you all during on May 25th, so the last day of school.
Our PTO president is online. Allison, if you can unmute, we'll go back to that slide so that you can give a parental perspective on our parent organizations, and then we'll open up to any final questions that we may have.
Can you guys hear me? No.
Yes. We can't hear you now because you muted after you said that. We
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I was just jumping in to say, if anyone, this isn't about PTO. I know tonight's mostly curriculum, but I was here, and if you had questions or if you wanted to know about PTO, I put my email in the chat, and I'm happy to talk to anyone about it. That was all.
So going back to some of the events that we have coming up, we have our Fun on the Field. That is April 26th, and it's going to be from 5 to 7 p.m. It'll be at Howard on our field. We'll have different activities. We'll have someone there to talk about some of the clubs that we offer. And then again, we will have our registrar there as well. You can scan, which is a flyer that you all probably have seen numerous times at this point, with the remaining activities, principals coffees, all of those things that we'll be holding for the remainder of the year. And then we also have our Summer Bridge program, and this is just a program during the summer. It is half day for the 2 days listed, July 17th and 18th. And this is where the students are able to meet other students from all of our feeder schools. We go over different important transition techniques, different things that they'll learn. We go over lockers, we go through the schedule with them again. We talk about the SNAKE schedule. They'll do team building activities. It's just some things to kind of get them acclimated and show them around the school building. So that link is also open. You can scan that QR code and you can sign up your student if that's something that you would like for them to participate in.
Well, that concludes our presentation. Thank you to the teachers that stayed on and, of course, are answering the questions in the chat. Again, if we have any questions, please feel free to either unmute or put them in the chat. We'll stay on for another 14 minutes just to answer these questions. But this does conclude the formal curriculum drive. Thank you all for coming out. We're so excited to have your students to join David T. Howard and become a RAM in August.
Couple of questions about Summer Bridge. It is not mandatory. We do encourage it. Our current sixth graders that came out last time had a good time. Unfortunately, those are the only dates that we are offering Summer Bridge.
Not only did they have a good time, they also felt like they knew the school a little bit more than their friends. So that was exciting to them because they could get around, they knew the teachers, they knew where their locker was and how to open a locker. So we have to always remember that we are combining 5 schools into one. And so because of that, any opportunity that we have to merge those entities prior to the first day to make it a more unified school, we really encourage parents to consider that. Remember, when they're in classes, our teams are diverse. They are not traveling in a cohort anymore. So any opportunity that you have for your student to meet another student from another school so that they can have friends, because that's what middle school is about, trying to figure out how to make a friend. Elementary, everybody in the class is my friend. In middle school, that's when they start being more selective about friends. So any opportunity that we give them to mingle and figure out likes and dislikes so that they can get with the right group, that is an opportunity for success. Building those relationships helps this environment to be more meaningful. Remember, they only have 3 years with us, so we have to build those relationships quickly in order for them to find this time as being valuable. Do we have any other questions?
I saw a question regarding how many connections classes the students can choose. So the students will be able to choose 4 connections classes. The students take 2 connections classes per semester, unless you are in one of our year-long classes. If your student opts to be in a year-long class, you will select 3 because you'll take that one for both semesters. If your student opts in to be in 2 year-long classes, then you'll take 2 because you'll have both of those classes for both semesters. So the connections link was sent out a while ago from the counselors at the feeder schools, where the students were able to select those 4 preferences. And Summer Bridge is the 16th and the 17th.
I went ahead and corrected that in the PowerPoint. So we do not have an accelerated ELA. We do have gifted ELA. I see someone asked, is there a criteria for accelerated ELA? Someone asked, will these recording be emailed or placed somewhere? Ms. Hollis, correct me. I think it will be on our YouTube channel.
The recording is already on the YouTube channel. I'm not sure at what point in time it started recording because we had the, technical difficulties at the beginning, but it is already on the YouTube channel. And I will add the full video from when we started recording, when we started speaking. It will also be on the YouTube channel. If you are not subscribed to the David T. Howard YouTube channel, please subscribe to the David T. Howard YouTube channel. You will also get all of the previous recordings. For example, the lunch and learn we did to go over how to use Schoology, because that'll be a new adjustment for parents. And just different things that we've done over the course of the year. And the slide deck is already on the Rising Rams page, which is under Rams Life on the website. And the correction that was made for the Summer Bridge dates would automatically update there. Yes, so the form may have the wrong dates for Summer Bridge.
I
do apologize for that. We had to find out when new teacher orientation was, and we were trying to get the information out as soon as possible. So we had to adjust dates based on when our new teachers will be coming to the school. So thank you. We will adjust that on the form. Ms. Scott, do you have that information?
Yes, it's been adjusted already.
Okay. Well, it's been great. My son is excited that you all have kept me entertained. So he had to pause doing his homework tonight. So he got to play outside with the daylight savings time. So if we don't have any further questions, then we can conclude. The dance and theater, they are separate. They're on the same day with the same instructors. So what we do, we try to allow that instructor to have flexibility. Everybody in there does not want to do the creative movement, but we do have performances. And at any performance, you need other pieces. You need people that are stagehands. And if you've been in the cluster for long, then you know that Midtown High School has a very strong musical theater and productions pathway. And so that kind of gets them started into that space. It is not a huge problem if they miss Summer Bridge. We go over that. I don't know, Ms. Jimenez, if you want to talk about that. We go over those, some same things when they get there the first week of school. Everybody can't come, and we're aware of that. But we try to make people more comfortable. Some people are a little anxious. So having that opportunity to start walking around the building, meet someone new, it kind of calms the water. So Ms. Jimenez, you want to talk about that?
Sure. It's definitely encouraged because sixth grade is a totally different environment. It's a huge school, a lot of different classes, a lot of places to get to. And so having not only a teacher that you're comfortable with, that you've seen before, that you can ask questions to, but other students that you can lean on is really great. I definitely encourage if, your child is anxious about the transition, definitely try to get to Summer Bridge because it's a great place where we've seen students grow in just 2 mornings and feel a lot more confident coming into the school, and in fact felt like leaders coming into the school. And so it's a really great opportunity, especially if your child is feeling a little uneasy with the transition.
Well, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you to the team. I'm going to stop recording at this time. Tabitha, you can take us off of YouTube. It's been great. The sun is still shining. Thank you to the staff for coming on. I appreciate everyone. Tabitha, are you going to take us off YouTube?
Yep. Give me a minute.